You know what time it is? Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And in case you only just stumbled upon this one, this is the number one place where you come to learn how people actually turn passion into purpose and build a life that's actually working for them. Not just the ones that look good on paper, but actually works. And if you've ever been told, whatever you're doing, that's not a real career, or maybe wondered if your dream will ever pay off, this episode is definitely for you. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and I want you to trust me on this one. You're going to want to share this one with somebody who's maybe doubting their path or is not quite certain if they're on the right way. But before you do that, make sure you are subscribed onto the Online Prosperity Show so that you never miss out on any of these conversations as they come by. Now, today I'm joined by somebody who actually is here to prove that patience, persistence, and purpose can take you from those fields at school into the professional stage. And there's a little wild something that I discovered about our guest here. But before we go in there, I just wanted to welcome Mr. Ofentse. Mr. Ofentse, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Prosper. What a pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to being able to share a little bit about myself. Hopefully it helps others along the way as well.
Absolutely. Well, don't you worry. The floor is going to be yours in a moment, but we're just going to explore a little bit about who you are, what it is that you do, why now, and obviously why should anybody care. And obviously from the part that we have discovered while we were, nosing around your profiles, we notice you're the pathway coach at Vodacom Bulls, and you're shaping the future of rugby and young men across South Africa. But you didn't start off at these particular fields and wearing these boots. You literally are said to have been born prematurely on the very day that your great grandmother was actually being buried, and you're a middle child who had to fight for their own attention since day one. So I can only imagine what that is like. And especially if you're the guy who's in the scrum and everybody else has gotten the ball and you're still huddled in, you still don't even know the direction to which the ball has gone. So for those that are watching right now, if you've ever been told that your dream won't work, I want you to drop yes in the comments so that we can actually hear your stories and see what it is that you have done after that. Or you could just sit back and listen to what Ofentse went on and did with the cards that he was dealt. Now, I could go on and on, Ofentse. You can tell, right? It's talking about things I'm not even qualified to talk about. Tell us a little bit about, your start, which obviously starts in very unfortunate circumstances, but you didn't let that become the story you told the rest of your life.
Thank you, Prosper. I think let's start there because I think that sort of is the reason, and that's a big part of what defines who I am and who I have become today. As I explained to you, I was born on the same day that my great grandmother was unfortunately buried. My mom was helping carry some things and put them in cars and whatnot. So pregnant, you can imagine a pregnant lady. And for some reason, something happened and she got hit with a door, the car door, while it was closing. And that sort of is what induced the labor. So she had to drop everything, obviously, get to the hospital. That's where I was born, a whole month premature. Everyone, my grandmother was extremely religious. So was my mom. Because of that. And the idea around it, everyone around my grandmother was saying, no, look, you now have to call him Sillo, which means tears. And my grandmother then refused and said, no, this was my mother, and this is my daughter who's having a child. And this young man who's going to be born here is victorious over the death of my mother, essentially. So as the Lord takes, he also gives at the same time. So we got to celebrate this child because that's what he is. He's the gift after the Lord had to take from us. And you can imagine hearing that story in my life, all my life. I thought to myself, wow, what does that really mean? And I've always sort of strived to, well, if I was the gift, then surely, what is it that I'm bringing to the party? And I guess in the long run, that's how I sort of dedicated myself and my life to sort of serving others. So as I was growing up, I've always sort of known that I wanted to serve, especially work with young minds. I just didn't know in what direction I wanted to go in. I knew I loved sports, I knew I loved people, but how would I then put them together? And I guess fast forward to today, that's how I got into all these positions and portfolios that I currently hold.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up with that. Even though it does sound like a sad beginning, it actually is an open door to who you actually went on and became. Now, looking at that aspect alone, you then grew up and you were obviously, trying to make it as a young man in this space. Were there any sort of role models or any influences that were that you probably would have looked up to and noticed that or saw yourself as the future you?
They were. So my father, growing up, my father was enthralled in sport. He lived for sport, and all his friends were also sports, either fanatics. And then as I grew up later, I realized a lot of them were actually sportsmen, including my father himself. Obviously, growing up in South Africa back in those days, soccer would have been the preferred sport. So a lot of his friends and peers and whatnot had played back in the day for either the Sundowns, Mamelodi Sundowns, Swallows, Pirates, Kaizer Chiefs, and growing up you hear all those stories and whatnot. So I think that was my first sort of influence regarding sport and my love for sport. I think that came from my father. He was a massive influence in my life as well, just in terms of who I am as a man. Never mind my chosen career as well. But I think that's really where that the seed was planted in terms of sport. Beyond family, or before I go away from there, I think my older brother. There's nobody who challenges me in this world like my older brother does. And that's always been from a young age. You can imagine, even in the household, being the middle child. He was there before me, and then after that there was a younger brother. So I always, like you said, had to fight for my spot in the family. Um, Looking back though, in hindsight, I think how he did it, how he sort of challenged me to not only try to be the best version of myself, but to be my own version and not to be like him. I think that was absolutely massive for me. In shaping who I was. So we are completely different, him and I. He's more of IT economic person, where I am obviously the sport people's person. And then my younger brother is also a little bit more like my older brother, also very much IT, very much economic. So you can imagine I was the odd one out, being the middle child. But I think that is what really gave me the drive beyond that, to really start to spread my wings. I got to meet in in my high school. There was a deputy principal called Mr. Anton Fenter, and I think the more I think about it, the more I realize how much of an impact he really had in my life. Outside of my family, I don't know if there's ever been anybody who believed in me like he did. He pushed me beyond limits I ever thought I would dream. He was the one who told me I could be a head boy when I first arrived at in high school. He was the one who told me I'm meant to lead men. I was born to lead men, and always pushed me for that. So I mean, a lot of the things that he said, I ended up being. I was deputy head boy eventually. I was athletics captain. I became a rugby captain. I was the SRC, Student Representative Council chairperson as well, who sat in the school governing body. So you talk about mentors and people to look up to. He had been absolutely massive in my life in sort of instilling that belief, and sort of the service to people, and how life gives you back if you are serving people. Beyond him, there was a gentleman called Piet van Wyk. He's still around. I still work with him as we speak. He was the one who accelerated my career. He saw something in me, I guess the same thing that Mr. Anton Venter saw in me. And he's the one who made sure I go and get my coaching courses. He's the one who essentially said to me, there is no limit to how far you can go. You determine, what that limit is. The moment you go and you get your coaching certifications and your whatnot, and you put yourself in those spaces, I don't see you stopping. I think you can go all the way. And those words live with me. They live within me every day. I wonder if I should actually say that to him. Maybe I should one day. But he's played a massive, absolutely massive role in where I stand today as well.
Absolutely. And I actually think you should, because there's nothing as strong as somebody coming to tell you, because of you, I did not give up. You know what I mean? Half of the time when we go through our lives, you're a coach yourself. You know what I mean? If some person is going to be on a podcast or some sort of conversation later on and saying, there was this guy, you know what I mean? And I looked up to him and things of that nature. I think you owe it to them, because we are as tall as we are because of the shoulders of the giants we're standing on. And
Very true.
If you could, I would take this opportunity to literally tell him that alone. But thank you so much for bringing that up, because when we have a point of reference in life, we definitely get to see who we could be. Or if we don't yet believe in ourselves based on the environments that we're in, we would literally use the belief that others have of us up until we've got the same one in ourselves. So as you were growing, obviously you were seeing a lot of sports on TV and things of that nature, but you keep referencing to the fact that your other brothers are very academic and things of that nature. What was it like, you coming back home and saying, I'm going to be throwing a ball for a living?
In a black family in South Africa in those days, and I know when my father sees this, he's probably gonna come for me. And I know, my father probably looked at me and thought, where have I gone wrong? What's wrong with this boy? Because I can tell you, the last thing he wanted would have been, somebody coming home and having this sort of dream in the cloud, to say, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go, and whatnot. But I'm very blessed, I think, to say this, that they always said to me, as long as you're going to give your absolute best at it, and as long as you know that you can't half absolutely anything, then you can go for it. But if you're going for it, then you've got to really go for it. So there was no half measures. Essentially, what he meant was this, that if that's really what I want, if that's really where I want to go, then my life has to look like that on a daily, and that's sort of how they also helped me curate my life. So I was the one who would always, want to be outside, and always made sure that was possible. I mean, we lived in homes that had yards where we can go play. It was stayed close to parks, and I think about it, now as we chat, and they've essentially enabled me, even though he probably thought I was crazy back, in those days. But in everything that they have done throughout my whole life, they've enabled me to actually go and follow that path. At the same time, enabling my brothers to do the same, which was different for them. And I will forever be grateful for that.
Absolutely. And I kind of hear them out in a way, because it's just them protecting themselves. They don't want to keep looking after you. They're so but obviously, with the determination that you had and the drive that you were instilling in yourself, obviously you were applying yourself to make sure that you actually never have to prove them right. Did that affect you maybe mentally at that particular time? I know obviously mental health is not something that is spoken about openly, but what sort of, place did that leave you? Did that motivate you to want more, or did that just get you to start doubting yourself?
I think both, to be honest with you. I'll tell you why I say that. Because, and I mean, you only realize as you're older, that it shouldn't be the case. But then sort of my sporting achievements started to become part of my identity, which is quite a dangerous place to be at. So especially because I started to realize that there was actually some talent there, and the more, as I said, they enabled. So the more I was able to get to practices and get to better schools that have better sporting programs, the better my view of where this whole thing could go. But also then the more the pressure got, because what started off as, hey, I'm going to try this whole sport thing because I really like it and I see my parents are allowing me to sort of, dabble in it a little bit. The better I got at the different sports, and the better I got, the more results and achievements obviously they were. And being a young mind at the time, I thought, well, this must always be the case. And if you are going to be, in sport someday in future, whatever it is, then you have to sort of win everything. And when that didn't happen, that's when the challenges started to arise. I mean, moving from one school to the other, where I was the best, and then now all of a sudden you're not the best, or dealing with injuries for the first time, now you can't compete at all. And there's this expectation, or the expectation I thought there was on me. There wasn't always necessarily expectation, but I thought there was all this expectation that, you're supposed to come in, you're supposed to be the superstar. Why aren't we seeing you on here? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you achieving that? That I thought did get to me at stages, especially in high school. There were some difficult periods in high school where, okay, so you're not the best at this and you're not the best at that. So what are you? Are you just sort of floating around and whatnot? And I guess the way I got to make up for that, in a way, is making up for it, but in a way, it's not necessarily right, because you shouldn't need to make up for it. It shouldn't be part of your identity. But then I started searching to try and get into leadership positions, at schools and whatnot, to make up for the lack of the sporting achievements and whatnot, which is also not the real reason why you should be getting into leadership. That's why the likes of Anton Fenter was so pivotal in my life, in those moments.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for obviously opening up to that, because I think so many young men and women out there have this, like you said, nobody really expects anything, but they think there's this big expectation that is thrust upon them to perform and actually be more, have more, and do more. But also, you also spoke about the part of the sport becoming the identity. I mean, have you seen the All Blacks when they're doing the haka? You know what I mean? That is them. And, you feel that this person is actually present, and and if they lose, it's like a part of them has been sliced off just because of the intensity of them
Yeah.
going into this. Now, I want you to be honest here. Were there moments where you then thought, wait a minute, what if these people are right? Maybe sporting is not going to be a real career.
Most definitely, a lot more than what I would like to admit, and what most people would probably think. I've thought about it a lot. There was a stage, I'm not 100% sure when it was, but I had worked for so many years, and my brother was the one who actually talked me out of it. And because, as I said, people are my superpower, and I thought sport and coaching is my other superpower. And because of that, I'd actually, been approached by a telecommunications company, or a friend of mine who's a little bit older than me now, who finished school before me, who then came to me and said, "Look, I would love for you to be a sort of brand ambassador or brand manager." And there was a lot of money sort of included in it and whatnot. And my brother was the one to talk me out of it. So my brother was the one to talk me out of it and say, you've worked, over a period of 8 to 10 years to get where you are. Yes, it's not where you wanted to be yet at this point, but are you really going to give all of that up for this? You have no idea what waits at the end of year 11, year 12, or year 13. You could also, still get to the same monetary value. And that was going to be the real reason why I actually stopped, right? I was really going to stop because I could not say no to this massive deal. And I mean, all I had to do was just be good with people, which I thought I was. And I thought maybe the sport thing is really not for me. I've been in it and I've given so much. And that for me was such a pivotal moment. And he just said, look, I hear you, but I also don't hear you. Like you've just thrown away the last 10 years essentially for this. He's like, I'll give it a couple more years. You're still young and just have a go, have a real go. And again, that resonates what my parents initially had said to me, when I first started with this whole thing, that if you're going to have a go, you're going to have a go. Don't half do it and then, be stuck with what ifs. And so, I mean, to think that a couple of years after that, that's when a lot of things started happening. I got elected into the South African Schools Rugby Association executive. I got my first job as a director of rugby, and so I could have quit just before things were actually meant to happen.
You see, at the end of the day, and I really value and appreciate the support that you've had, because so many people would have let go if they didn't have the backup that you would have had from family, from what it sounds like. And what I'm hearing from all of this is the opportunity that we're looking for is actually in the boring work, without the applause, without everything else. Because yes, for a game of rugby or soccer, you are only in front of the audience for 90 minutes. I mean, 45 minutes plus commercials if you're watching TV and things of that nature, right? But throughout, you've got to do all the drills and all the early mornings and late nights that nobody gets to see. So maybe walk us through what is some of that boring work that you had to do in order for you to then show up and do and have the life that you now have.
Sure. So it's actually twofold, and I would like to explain both because it's the real reality of where we are. So, just to give you a little bit of background, currently, if you have played professional sport, come through the ranks, you've played professional sport, and you're coming to an end, it's a lot easier now for you to become a coach and get in, because there is an exception essentially, which right or wrong, that if you played at a certain level, you should be able to coach, at a certain level, or you should be at least be some sort of decent coach of some sort. So having not played professional sport like myself, it becomes really, really difficult to break into that same world or that same environment without that background. Because who's this guy? Who are you coming in here? What are you coming here to tell me? Where you've got ex Springboks and ex world this and ex, best that in the world. They automatically come with a package essentially that they can sort of impart, or so we assume as a general public. So having come through the school system, you kind of have to make the name for yourself. That doesn't come through fame. That comes through the graft. And that had to teach me, hey, focus on what you have right here in front of you first. And this might lead you to whatever fame or big stage that you want to get onto. And a lot of those things were volunteering work. A lot of the work is not paid, and it's many hours. You volunteer to become part of the high school association, or you have to be voted on actually by other peers. So where does it start? It starts, how good is your own program looking at the school? I came in 18 years old at my previous school. Thank goodness I had the opportunity to do that. Mr. Anton Venter, the same guy I've been speaking about, invited me to come and coach while I was studying sports science. So I go back to the school. I'm coaching at the school under 14s, junior teams. Nobody's watching those teams. But because of how seriously he took his craft, that's where I learned to love your craft and really, treat them as if I was coaching the Springboks one day, because I had that in the back of my mind, that hopefully one day I'll get to teach them. So the early morning Saturday mornings, all my friends either got to sleep in or go on tours and whatnot, where I've got to be there, work with these boys, these young boys. Some of them don't even know the potential I see in them, the same potential somebody saw in me, when I was in high school at some point. And just seeing the dedication, I think also seeing some of the backgrounds and environments they come from, and seeing that this was their escape, from whatever environments and whatnot that they lived in, and dedicating myself and my hours, to them. Sometimes it seemed like it's fruitless because you don't win. You putting in all these hours. Parents are on your case. Why aren't we winning? Every parent sees their child as a superstar. We know that. But the late nights, the early mornings, minimal or no pay, that was for me a humbling experience, but also a grounding experience, because without that, today doesn't happen, and you only realize that in hindsight. I think beyond that, once you are now in it and starting to really sort of start to see some leeway and some light at the end of the tunnel, being invited to become a selector. Again, even that on its own, many hours, you have to watch a whole lot of other schools play, a whole lot of other teams play. It's really sacrificing, but you sacrifice the one thing you can never get back, and that's your time. That's time away from your family, that's time away from friends. Sometimes even, you got to look at it as, I'm investing in my future. So, I may not be able to do something I want to do now, but this may allow me to do something in future, that I would never have been able to do if I didn't invest this time. So I think that for me was the biggest thing, sacrificing your time without pay, volunteering, because you knew this experience will allow me to get into, a better opportunity later on. And through that, the opportunities actually did come. I remember getting that very first phone call. I was at a private school in Johannesburg, little private school, not known for rugby. When I got there, my intention was, I'm going to try and put the school on the map. That's my job, and that's what I'm going to try and do. It's not about me. If the school can be on the map, then maybe somebody will see my work, and maybe somebody will recognize what it is that I'm doing. And I will never forget driving to school on a random morning and getting a phone call, looking at my true caller, and it says on there, Jake White. And I thought, well, who would call themselves that? Like, how much did you like Jake White that you called yourself that? Because I never expected Jake White to call me in a million years. And when I answered the phone and he said it's Jake White, and I recognize the voice, I've heard it so many times on TV. I've attended talks where he spoke. Ex-Springbok coach, won the World Cup, has coached everywhere around the world, and he's saying, "Listen, Ofentse, this is Jake White. Can you chat?" I had to pull my car over because I thought, what is this? And that was him, or that was my moment of acknowledgement for all the sacrifice, all the payless, or the volunteering work, and that was the moment for me that said, hey, we see you, or the universe, or the world, or whoever, we see you, and here is a moment for you for the next spot. And all that did was re-energize me, because now I know, everything in theory, everything that my brother had said, my dad had said, Mr. Anton Venter had said, Mr. Piet van Beek had said, this was the moment it culminated, where all of a sudden I now stand in the position where I get to now be a professional coach.
Absolutely, and congratulations. I mean, is it the Jack White that got the Springboks the Rugby World Cup in 2007?
Yes, sir. The very one. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a very proud moment in my life. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. So after all these years of volunteering and all that sacrifice, did it actually feel like this is it? Was it worth it?
It was so worth it. I would do it again. And I get a lot of messages, on social media, especially people I don't know at all. I love that. I absolutely love that, because I never had that. Growing up, there wasn't really social media and whatnot. So the only way you could really connect with anybody else who sort of has done it or knows how to do it was if you met them in person by any chance, or, You couldn't just randomly be able to connect with anybody and sort of try and get some guidance. I now get, hey, I really look up to or really enjoy your work, or can you help me with this? And the first thing I say, some of them have no idea where to start. And the first thing I say is this: look, the sacrifice, it's not for nothing. I promise you, go and volunteer. It really is worth it. The amount that you learn without the pressure, because here's the thing: if you're going to get paid for it, it comes with the pressure, obviously, with a massive amount of pressure. There's an expectation that, high performance sport, professional sport, there is a winning element to it that you can't escape. And you just have to deal with it. The beauty of volunteering is that everyone is very well aware that you're also a volunteer, that it is also sacrifice of your time and whatnot. And I think the connections that you build there is probably more important, and the experiences you gain there, it's probably more important than the monetary value. That's really where you build yourself and you fall in love with the craft. By the time you become a professional, what makes you a professional is everything that you did as a volunteer, and all the sacrificing and whatnot. There is no switch. It doesn't just, hey, you're a professional and now you're going to, no. Then you still have to go and learn all those lessons, unfortunately, that somebody who has volunteered already and sacrificed their time for. You still have to go learn those lessons first before success or sustainable success can come.
Oh, absolutely. And I value that so much, because half of the time when we're doing certain things, we're not noticing. We're just probably just looking for the end. But it is the journey that actually matters a lot more, because people will only reflect back on that which you have done, not that which you want to become. And I mean, you've definitely won a lot of trophies. You've lost finals. What is it that people really get wrong about success in sport and in life, especially when they're just waiting for that one goal that they want to make in a stadium full of all the people, where Jack White will probably be standing on the other end, arms wide open, ready to give him a handshake.
I read something the other day, and it stuck with me. And the moment you said that, I almost wanted to regurgitate it out. It said that success and failure exist together. Success and failure exist together. There isn't, the one doesn't exist without the other. So what does that mean? That means that in any sort of competition, in any sort of contest that you're going to get into, both of them exist. And both of them are a reality to you. And I think we often forget that, going into especially this professional world of sport. And that's what we sort of try and impart on the players as well. That look, success and failure, they operate together. And what's going to be the difference? So everyone goes to training, everyone does video work, everyone goes to gym, and. But have you really geared your life towards, this is actually what I want to do? It cannot be based on whether you're successful or not. It's got to be based on progress. I think that probably was my biggest learning, that if I'm better tomorrow than I am today, it may not be better than my opposition, but I am better. I have improved. And as long as I can look at those mini goals on a daily basis, and that's how sort of I regulate myself. I think a lot of people think, or what a lot of people don't realize is this: professional sport is a 1% job. There are only that many people in the world that can be a professional in whatever sport that they can be. So I'll give you an example in our industry. So being a pathway coach at the Bulls as we speak, there are 4 franchises who have pathway coaches at the moment. I take care of the defense at the Bulls as a pathway coach. So that means in my job as we speak right now in the country, there are 4 of me. So obviously, me being part of the 4, I can't always be successful, because that means there are 3 other unsuccessful coaches walking around. So my question then becomes, how then do we measure success? Is success the team that always wins? I'm the coach that always wins. Everything I touch is gold, yes. Or can I also see it as success if I produce, or I'm part of the management of the coaching staff that produces the future Springboks that sit here, or that I can produce a father and a husband and a man who contributes, or a woman who contributes to society positively after. Is that also, can that also be seen as success, even though I'm in a professional era? Or am I just looking at the wins? The reality is this, and we say to our boys as well, as much as we're all aiming for it. I want you to be the very best in the world, and I would love for you to play for the Springboks one day, or I would love for you, to go play overseas and become a world beater. The reality is this: again, it's only 1%, and they only space for that many. So does that mean then you're going to be a failure if you don't achieve that? Absolutely not. And that's what we're trying to pass on in terms of how is it that we measure success? What do we look at when we talk about success? And I think that's probably been my biggest lesson to try and impart on the young minds that we're working with, and say, when you're looking at success, knowing that it exists with failure at all times. Sometimes you don't win a game, but it doesn't mean you were not successful in what it is that you were trying to do. And it's the
Absolutely.
same
And
thing.
I love that. And, so many people put so much pressure on themselves, just maybe it's based on the expectations, like you were saying, of the people that are around them without actually being a part of the real statistics or the actual real outcome. Now, you are helping shape young men, and obviously you're taking them out of their heads into the ground, and also out of that funk that they might be in. How much of your own journey do you see in these young men, especially young men of today, who have a whole different perspective to life?
It's massive. I'll tell you a story. I used to at my second school that I worked at. My headmaster at my school when I was in high school was my boss. He then became my boss when I moved from that school to a different school. So he was my headmaster when I was in school. He then moved. He went to a different school, and then he employed me at that school. Then he made me the director of the boarding house, as well as the director of sport at the same time, which was a massive, massive portfolio for somebody as young as I was at the time. And staying in boarding is had really sort of reshaped my thinking of, especially that question that you're saying, how much of myself do I see in a lot of these players, or these young minds. So we'll spend quite a lot of time with them on weekends naturally, because we're obviously sharing a living space and whatnot. And you start to hear how they speak like you, how they think like you. Their reactions are the same as yours. And then I started to think to myself, it's not, am I seeing similarities of me? I'm almost seeing carbon copies of me. That was the impact I was having on their lives. That was probably one of the most frightening moments of my life. And I sat back. I mean, I remember, I will never forget, we were watching a Premier League game, and I hear how they respond when somebody said something, or when somebody said something on TV, or when they saw that, or just one boy talking to the other, and then how another one would respond back to them. And I hear, those are my thoughts, those are my words that are being, repeated amongst themselves, each other. And that was such a sort of, again, another grounding moment for me. I'm not seeing similarities. I'm seeing almost carbon copies of myself, in these boys. And if that's the case, and I had this opportunity to redo this thing called life, how would I do it better? And that was my question now, to say, how could I guide them to hopefully be better than what I was? If we're already sort of experiencing life the same way and sort of taking it the same way, because they look to me for guidance and whatnot. How then can I shape their lives, to take better routes than me, or to be better than I was, Because I mean, none of us really ever get that opportunity. But here I sat in such a unique, glamorous moment.
Oh, absolutely. And just listening to you there, Offense, I think it's very, very clear that you're not just coaching rugby here now. You know what I mean? You are actually building belief in people who don't quite see their own potential yet. And that is something that was also done for you, by your mentors like Anton Venter and Peter van Wyk, and also lastly, Jack White, and things like that. You're just literally passing on the good that was given to you at that particular time. And for those that are watching right now, if you feel stuck or maybe overlooked, or maybe like your hard work isn't paying off yet, you might just be, on one of those boring days, which are maybe a day or two away from the actual breakthrough, because you never know who's going to be on the other end of the call. Just like Offense had the call from Jack White, and recently just got the call from the Online Prosperity Show, and here we are. So tell us, what can or how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn a little bit more about your journey and see what it is that you can help them with?
So I'm available on a bunch of social media platforms. On Instagram, it's Coach Bolak. It's Bolak. On LinkedIn, it's just Ofentse Moeng. On LinkedIn, and also on Facebook, just Ofentse Moeng. And I would like to really stress and just put out there, please do, if you have any questions. I really would love to help anybody who is out there wanting to get some sort of guidance, help. If I can't help, hopefully I can also point in the right direction. Yeah, like I said to you, based on everything we've spoken about, I actually ended up having a transformational statement, as a coach that I sort of put forward, and I try and live by that the whole time. And if I could share that with you, which was to inspire people, athletes, the leaders, coaches, to truly, routinely strive for excellence and to have unwavering belief in themselves based on a foundation of integrity, resilience, and joy. And I hope to embody that as I continue through the journey. I could almost say you're doing the same thing, to be honest with you. Yeah, and I hope to really embody that and help others, who could potentially also help others, and we could have some sort of wave, that's growing and going.
Absolutely. You see, in life, Mr. Offense, we're here to live, we're here to learn, we're here to contribute. So, in order for us to be able to live the best life possible, we need to learn. And there's always people that we look up to, that if we really, you know, um, pay attention to the lessons, we'll be able to have a happier existence. And once we have learned enough and we are now living the life that we want, it is our duty, and the onus is on us to send the elevator down so that we can also help others
100%.
on their way up. And I viscerally believe that this is exactly what it is that you're doing, and you're doing it in strides. So, on behalf of all the people that will have an opportunity to be in your presence and to just maybe see one or two of the people that you have put on a pathway lift that trophy above their head, thank you, sir, because you are opening doors for others, which is how you came into the world, by a door
Yeah,
opening. And that is also then your last name.
Master. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll take that. I'll definitely take that.
Absolutely. Well, you've
Thank
told us
you,
where
sir.
you've been, you told us what you're doing. What's next, Offense? What should we be excited about now that you've brought us into your world that you're working on?
Look, I think the big thing is this. Coaching is obviously my pride and joy. Coaching is my passion. Uh, but I'm really what I'm really excited about at the moment is helping develop other coaches. I'm really pushing in terms of the coach and developer area. What I've done is getting involved in women's rugby lately. This has been the excitement, complete excitement of my life at the moment, other than my newborn son.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations.
Thank you very much. So I really think it's an opportunity again, to impart so much knowledge to a population, that has been under so much scrutiny, so much harm, so much pressure in the world. I mean, in a country like ours, that there's so much gender-based violence. It seems everything is against the female child or the woman in the country. It's very difficult at the moment for them. So if I can contribute in any way to sort of help them prosper in life, help them get to a stage where they can help themselves and help others, then I would take that gladly. So I've thrown myself into women's rugby, developing women coaches, developing players, and have joined action, or have joined the fight with the South African Rugby Association, where I will be leading the girls rugby development in schools. And please look out for that. South Africa will become a powerhouse real soon. We are getting there. And then just getting involved locally as well with our female coaches and the female game, and seeing where I can contribute. I worked with some of the Blue Bulls female coaches recently, and was very proud to see they've just won their trophy as well with the all-female coaching staff, which is history in the making, and at least just some positive news away from all the regular negative news we hear, especially regarding females and how they're treated in the country.
Absolutely. Now, offensive. First of all, congratulations on Junior right there. I mean, obviously, as a father, you probably don't even hear him crying because you're so used to the vuvuzelas in the stadiums, right? So
it's become like background music now.
Well, you want to be paying attention. And speaking of paying attention, what I've just really want to conclude with is whoever's watching this right now, no matter what it is that you're going through, you really need to be paying attention to what is actually happening, because that is the building of the greatness that you're going to be celebrating a whole lot later. And even, it doesn't come now. It is in the boring grunt work that you can actually sit back and celebrate, and maybe one day have a good story to tell, not only on the Online Prosperity Show, but anywhere else that you are given a microphone. And Ofentse, thank you so much for the journey that you have taken, for pushing the scrum all the way till we got a try. I think we definitely made a score here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Prosper. This was absolutely incredible, and may this not be the last time, please.
Don't worry, I'll buy my vuvuzela and then you can take. What a journey for those that are watching right now. I mean, obviously, Ofentse went from uncertainty to now impact, and he doubted himself, and now he's one of the most disciplined people on the team. And from being told to get a real job to actually building a real legacy. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this episode, it's this: half of the work that we are supposed to be doing and the grunt work, all that work that sounds like the boring work, that's the work that we should be doing. So your moment is not missing. It's just being built, and it's being built by that work that you're avoiding. So here's your call to action. Go back to the thing that you've been putting off, whether it's in business, relationships, or even in your health, and just commit to it for the next 30 days. No excuses, all right? And when you do, come back and tell us in the comments below. Tell us what shifted. And if this episode really, really spoke to you, share it with somebody who might just need that reminder that their dream is still valid. Because I think they are. Look at Ofentse. He has gone on, done, and he's now leading back with a trophy on top of his head. Not only a trophy in the grand scheme of things, but a trophy in the happiness that he has now become. And I think he's going to be passing that on to his son that he's just spoke about there. So if this episode really spoke to you, just share this. And while you're at it, be sure to be checking out any of our episodes on the Online Prosperity Show, where we're just diving into ideas that will help you create a happier, more aligned existence, not just a successful one that looks great on paper. Until next time, keep showing up, keep doing the work, and most importantly, stay in the game long enough for your moment to find you. I don't know what you're going to do with this information. Bye for now.